Next item, Mr. Mueller, item 4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the resolution 2009-070, amending the Vista 2020 by adding Appendix Q, Architecture and Design Guidelines, and declaring a 30-day public record be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Brush.
Thank you, Mayor Strain, members of council. This is a request for a general plan amendment to Vista 2020. This would add a new appendix to the plan, Appendix Q, Architectural and Design Guidelines. As you are aware, but for the public, this stems from one of your city council's strategic plan objectives, which was set back in May of 2007 and stated, develop architectural and design standards for future commercial buildings. And there are 2 components to this effort. This is the first of the 2 items you'll hear tonight. The guidelines are before you now, and the code amendment will follow. And the code amendment mandates that the guidelines be implemented, basically, and then the guidelines provide a number of different ways to achieve quality architectural design within the city for commercial and industrial projects. The process has included numerous outreach efforts to include 2 public workshops, and the results of those workshops are included in your packet. A lot of public input gathered through the last 2 years that we've been going through this. And the way that the document is structured is that we have various elements identified, the different constituents of commercial development, breaking it down into such things as the color of the building, the walls, the context, the roofs, windows, signage, lighting, and site design components. Additional considerations are provided for restaurants, for large box developments, for multifamily developments, for the West End, and for city facilities. And each of those elements that I described has a section within it that describes the intent, what we're trying to achieve with the guidelines. And then there are a number of different ways, different provisions that can be used by a developer and an architect to achieve that intent, to include things that aren't even in the guidelines. We have left the door open for architects to propose any number of different possibilities to achieve the intent. The administration will be by city staff, and the creation of a design review board remains an option for the future should council decide to head in that direction. And I will just mention that the city has regulated certain aspects of site design since 1986. This takes the city forward into the next step and more on a level plane with other cities within Arizona and around the country who regulate architecture and design. So this helps ensure that existing high-quality development in the city is matched with future future high-quality development as well. This was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 7th and 21st. And the commission did vote unanimously to recommend approval to you. This resolution tonight establishes a 30-day public record to obtain further public input, and will return to you on June 25th. And I will mention that it is available for review on the city's website, which is sierravista.az.gov, and it's under government and public notices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. I might mention that a great many people have been participating in the design review process over the last few years, and without exception, I've received nothing but compliments on the quality, the taste, the desires, the way it's presented, a very professional, workable effort to make this community even a nicer, more visually accepting place to live. Thank you very much. Any other comments from council on the process?
Just a couple in that, as Don Brush said, this allows us to come on board with other cities that when you have development coming into your city, they actually expect to be given a design guideline. And so this is great for Sierra Vista to be able to do this. Also that we had so much input from all different parts and different people associated with the building process, and that it isn't a mandatory, you will do this. It allows a lot of flexibility in the guidelines. So I think a lot of thought was put into this, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Mr. Hampton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Echoing on Councilwoman Husking's comments, I am very impressed, Mr. Brush and city staff, Mayor Pro Tem Mueller, and the Planning and Zoning Commission with the incredible participation and the amount of work that went into this process. I'm very pleased with the results. I'm very pleased with the amount of input that we got from the public. I just had a meeting with the president of the Chamber of Commerce yesterday afternoon, and and she was, spoke very, very favorably about this and the process. So, just thanks to everyone who was involved in this. Again, I think it's going to really help Sierra Vista to be a very attractive city. So thank you for all your hard work.
Ms. Doctor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to echo what Hank and Larry have said, and say how well thought out this is. The writing, the descriptions, the whole input that you put into the guidelines. They're readable, they're very easy to understand, and it's just a wonderful job. And I thank you for all the efforts that you put through forward. Thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor? All in favor? Okay. Thanks, Don. Ms. Doctor, item 5.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Resolution 2009-071, amending the development text, Chapter 151 of the City Code by adding Article 151.20 to the Development Code and declaring a 30-day public record be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Brush?
Thank you again, Mayor Strain and members of council. This now is the second part of the process. This is the implementation portion, which is actually an amendment to the development code and sets a new article in place, Article 151.20. The code amendment includes a purpose section. It includes clarification as to when review is required and when it's not required. Establishes review authority, indicating when the Director of Community Development is the authority for approval and when the Development Review Committee is the authority for approval, which is basically any site design component, any site plan related issue that has to do with design will be under the approval authority of the DRC. And it sets a requirement for a pre-submission meeting, which is something that came out of our efforts with the Chamber for site plans and has worked very well for developers in identifying any issues that there may be up front early in the process. It lists the submittal requirements, has appeals language and other legal language, and very briefly, all residential development would be exempted, all multiplexes 4 units or less would be exempted, and all townhomes would be exempted. With those exceptions, pretty much everything else except for minor additions to commercial would be regulated. This was also heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the 21st of April, recommended unanimous approval along with the guidelines, and this too establishes the 30-day public record, which would return to you on June 25th.
Thank you. Further comment by council? All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Brush.